Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cup Editorials, brought to you by Cup of Hemlock Theatre. We've done a few of these already. Yep. This isn't new and exciting anymore. But today, I think will be a slightly different editorial than the ones we've done so far, but probably not too different from other ones we might do on the horizon.
Yes.
Because we're going in with very little planned, let's just say. Sort of the beauty of the editorial format, even though a lot of the ones we've done so far have been things that we've thought a lot about and maybe even brought like an expert witness on. This is one that is just an idea that you had for something that's been on your mind in the theater world. And we have this format where we can just do an episode talking about it. So I will be your host, interlocutor, Ryan Borochovitz, co-artistic producer here at Cup of Hemlock Theatre, and I'm joined by my co-artistic producer, co-host, interlocutor, Mackenzie Horner.
Hello, sir. Good evening. How are you today, this fine day?
Yes, I'm doing all right on this fine day.
Yes.
So this is an editorial that I guess we can say short version is on long-running theater shows and deconstructing the idea of longevity when it comes to theater. This was your idea. It's something that's been on your mind. For those watching this on YouTube, you can see that Wicked is hovering above your shoulders.
That's right.
So clearly,
it's defying gravity behind me.
Oh, I love that. So nobody in all of Oz, no wizard that there is or was, is ever going to bring it down. So, so why don't you before you get us started though? What's in your cup? You got to do that, even though it's a casual, freeform one.
I always love my good Crystal Light or a grapefruit tangerine flavors of things. And of course I have it in my new, very fancy Stratford tankard that has the Richard II quote on it, because that is my new favorite thing to drink out of. So there we go.
Love that. And
how about you?
As for me, I just have a nice cup of coffee in my The Cup classic.
That's right.
That's the show you're watching.
It is a classic.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay, so we're off to a great start in this freeform editorial format. But Mac, this was an idea you had.
I did.
You wanted to talk about this idea of longevity in theater. So why don't you just make an introductory statement and then we'll just go back and forth and casually talk about it over a drink.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, Ryan, the joy of the editorial system was that we said was anytime we have an idea or a concept of a topic that is in the theater world that, could spark a discussion, let's sit down and just do a video on it. And so we've done theater etiquette. We did Diana versus Evita, Evita versus Diana. That's the way the names kept going back and forth.
Either or. It's fine.
Exactly. So we've done that one. I forget. I feel there was
the one I did with Max Ackerman about Jewish representation.
Which was terrific as well. And so this one kind of came up because, Ryan, I know you were not the most biggest musical aficionado.
Yes, I'm glad you phrased it that way, because I am a fan of musicals, but not an expert.
Correct.
I pride myself on being an expert of many different types of theater, but musical, sadly, is not one of them, as much as I do enjoy it. But often you phrase it in a way that, like, Ryan, you hate musicals. And I'm like, no, I don't, I swear.
He swears. He does enjoy them, except for Sweeney Todd.
No, I enjoy Sweeney Todd just fine. I just think it's a worse version of Jekyll and Hyde, is what I will say. Get at me.
Right.
Again, you overstate the extent to which I dislike certain musicals writ large. I like musicals. I like most musicals, but
except for Sondheim.
Well, I like Sondheim fine, but I lack the musical aptitude to understand what everyone loves about him so much, I guess is my thing.
True.
Anywho.
But we're not talking about Sondheim. We have a whole Sondheim Roundtable you can go and explore.
Yeah, it's up there.
It's up there somewhere. But no, what came of this was, Ryan, you and I have talked in the past about, the longevity of shows where, we have some shows that run like Wicked and Les Mis. Les Mis is going to be 40 years old in the West End in 2025. Karen McIntosh just announced they're doing a big arena concert tour that will go all over the world before ultimately ending up back in London to do the big 40th anniversary concert that they're going to be doing. So, it's going to be one of those things where, and then Wicked is doing a big celebration for its 20th anniversary. Phantom's still running in the West End. It just closed on Broadway after 35 years. But then there are other shows that, they'll run like 800 performances or whatever. Or not even that. Parade, a show that just won Best Revival at the Tony Awards, literally closed at the end of August, even though it was selling great. The producers just decided to go, nope, we're done. That's all we have. We're, and let it be, and didn't let the show ride longer, even though I'm sure it could have run if you had just, swapped out Ben Platt and put another good actor in the lead role of Leo Frank. Same thing they're going to do with Josh Groban when he leaves Sweeney Todd. Come January, there's rumors there could be Mr. Aaron Tveit coming in to take over the role. So that's very exciting. So once again, like, some shows get the chance to run long, others don't. And it's kind of the thing of, some people complain about some of these shows that run so long that they kind of just become stapled there on Broadway and don't quite add anything new. They're just kind of always in place, stuck there. And, Patti LuPone very notably said when Phantom closed, she goes, thank God it's about time that show closed, because she kind of said, like, it run its course long before the 35-year mark. She felt it should have closed much like a while before that. So, there are people out there who go, we don't need shows running this long. They take up precious real estate that, there's already so little real estate in these bigger houses, kind of like yes, you're selling, but at the same time, there are new shows that are trying to get their foot in the door to get new voices heard, but producers won't give the space up because they have now paid back the backers and they are making their money hand over fist with each other nonstop. So it's kind of this ongoing debate I've heard many theater people talk about of, should there be life limits on shows? Should there be a natural time when we say, hey, you've run 10 years. Thanks so much for your time. It's time to shut the door and bring it back in a few years as a revival, but let's let it lie and we'll come back again soon. So, but there's other people who go, no, let it run, man. Like, if it's selling and making money and giving people permanent jobs, then why should we stop the system for the sake of, opening another show? It's probably not going to run as long anyway. So, I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts there with this topic. I mean, it brings up a lot of conversations, and, it's something else that we talked about before the downbeat, because I have my new co-host, the wonderful Scott Hurst, and he talks about how, the need for new voices in Broadway in the last few years has really upticked, and there are new voices coming through. But getting a show made on Broadway is very hard, and part of the process is getting into a venue and that type of thing there. So there's a lot of topics there. I don't know, Ryan, where do you stand on long-running shows?
It's funny when
what's your concept or viewpoints on them?
So it's funny, when you first pitched this to me just the other night about, like, this is something we could do an episode on. Yeah. My first thought was, I don't think I have any opinion about this whatsoever. But that's not, that's, as I thought about it for a bit, I guess, like, I can have opinions, but it's definitely not something I've devoted a lot of thought to. I definitely don't have any kind of, like, inside baseball knowledge about the economics of these shows or what, profit motives or otherwise incentives kind of gets them going. But it's funny, the first thought that I had when you proposed this is that I just read something about this. And it's funny, it's something that I had read before, but it's from Sarah Ruhl's book of essays or micro essays, 100 essays I don't have time to write, which I've recently reread in preparation for Necessary Angel is doing her new play Letters from Max at the Theater Center. It's forthcoming at the time when we're recording this. Depending on when we release this, it might be a distant memory, or depending on when you're watching this, maybe it's a distant memory. But so I've had Sarah Ruhl on the brain. I love that little book of essays, so I just kind of made a point of picking it up in anticipation of this new show and rereading it. And she has an essay, a micro essay about this, one she did not have time to write fully, as is the point of the volume. And so I pull it up here. Sorry, I have it on my screen. So this is, if anyone's following along with the book at home, it's essay number 55, Hungry Ghosts, Gardens, and Doing Plays in New York. And I'm just going to read a small little quote from it here, if you'll indulge me, Mac.
Please, Ryan.
Quote, "If a play were to run forever, could it properly be called theater anymore? Instead, it would be an ossified, strange thing, dangling halfway between live theater, a parade, and an amusement park ride. Think of the longest-running plays. What happens to them? What do they become? Restaurants and plays should not be open for longer than the half-life of a chef. I mistrust restaurants that have been open for 50 years and plays that have been running for 15 years. Can food stay alive that long? Both restaurants and theaters must offer up living food, end quote.
Oh, that gave me a lot to think about, because something we talked about right before the cameras rolled was the longest running show in the West End is actually not Les Miserables, even though it is number 2 on the list. Number 1 is The Mousetrap, which opened on the 25th of November, 1952. And now has run 28,735 performances.
That is a lot.
My mother saw that in the West End back in the 90s when she was there.
And by then it was
80,
already old. It was already old news by then.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah. Sorry, go on. Did that quote spark any thoughts in you?
It did. Because like the whole thing with the show is, when does, what's the one about, is it Prometheus' ship or Archimedes' ship, where it's like you take it all apart?
Ship of Theseus.
The ship of Theseus, where it's like, after the original cast leaves, and they were the ones that, brainchilded this piece with the creative team and really kind of gave the show life. And now you're kind of keeping the production frozen, telling the new actors, okay, so, when Patti LuPone played Fantine, during this moment in Like I Dreamed a Dream, she looked to the stage left and lowered her head and put her head in her hand. Now the actors are just being told, blocking wise, you have on this line, look left, look down. And Patti LuPone talks about this in her book, where she was asked to come to Broadway and originate the role of Fantine on Broadway because she'd won the Olivier, the first American to win Olivier in the West End for Fantine. And so they were like, of course you're going to come to Broadway and do this. She said, no, I don't want to. Because my experience of doing this in the West End with this cast was so special. I don't want to do it again. And she went back, and she went one night and sat in the back of the theater and watched the Broadway production after it opened. And she said, thank God I didn't, because, it was literally a carbon copy. Randy Graff, who had taken over the role on Broadway and originated the role on Broadway, was literally doing the same movements. Like, they literally just told Randy Graff, okay, go here, do this. And she goes, you lose the organic discovery as an actor of how things are supposed to be. Like, I've seen Wicked 4 times on stage because, I've had friends who always come and they always go, I got the ticket to Wicked, let's go, Mac. That type of thing there. And, the walking is very similar. Like, yes, the actors can add different line inflections and different readings of a line, but it takes a really special actor to discover something new in the role that is unique and kind of there to explore and excavate into it. I think that's why people like certain writers, like Sondheim. Speaking of Sondheim, his writing is so rich. Like we talked about it in our Sweeney Todd episode. The choices those actors have to make as the characters are so unique to how that actor views the character. Like Mrs. Lovett, for example, she either like how far in advance is that woman planning her ultimate Cannibalism Incorporated program? Like, does she already have the idea in mind when she hands Sweeney Todd the razor first time he walks into his barber shop? Or is it only after he's murdered Pirelli and she sees the body in the trunk and kind of goes, there's an opportunity here that I never saw before. It could be a little priest, right? And then it's like, where is she making these decisions? Same thing with Sweeney. Like, the wheels are turning all the time, and there are choices you have to make of. For example, when does Sweeney Todd choose to kill Pirelli? Well, at what point in that conversation in their parlor scene, when like, is it after Pirelli reveals his name as I was the shop boy who swept up hair in the barber shop, or is it only when he says I'm going to blackmail you and go talk to my pal Beetle Bamford? Is that when Sweeney really goes, okay, he's got to go? Like, when is that moment? And I think there are certain writing choices, certain pieces allow the actors to have more chances to breathe life and give new line readings. And there are some shows like The Wickeds, like The Les Mis, that are more frozen and hold and don't quite let the actors play too much. Like, I've seen the song Popular done 4 times. Every time Glinda dances on the same spot across the room, because that's how Christian Chenoweth did it. Back when Christian Chenoweth has said, I believe Glinda was a horrible ballerina dancer as a child, and this is her trying to be balletic and fairy-like and whimsical, and this is how she does it. She's horrible at it. The actors now do it because it's a funny gimmick of watching, an actor kind of do bad pirouettes across the stage as they sing la la la, so it's like, are the actors doing it organically, like they come up with their own character motivation, or is it the resident director has said, okay, all right, Jill, this is your moment, dance this way, and you got to go from here to here, and this is what you got to do. So I don't know. Like, I think that essayist was right about, at some point the show does lose its original juice, and it becomes more just, we're bringing new people, yes, but are they actually getting the chance to be organic and discover things for themselves? Or is it, you got 2 weeks to learn the whole show, we're going to give you the blueprint and you kind of just got to follow along with what's already been preset for you? I don't know. Ryan, what do you think?
I have a lot of, I guess, just thoughts over the course of you kind of unpacking all that. Yes. Who knew I would have opinions about this? I certainly didn't.
Know.
But I guess before I get into any opinions, can I ask you a question? Because sure. I think you've raised something interesting here. Mm-hmm. Is the problem that the shows are themselves running long? Or is it a problem that they are being, as Sarah Ruhl said, ossified, and that it's the same identical performance each time? Like, I guess to phrase this a different way, if the actors were given freedom to develop, or if every few months they kind of get back into rehearsal and say, like, are we still feeling this? Does this seem the same? But otherwise keep the show running.
Yeah.
Is the problem actually that the mousetrap has been on stage for over 50 years? Or is it just a problem if it's the exact same production that you would have seen 50 years ago, that your mom saw in the 90s, that we can go see today? Because I feel like we're framing this as if it's a problem with longevity itself. But I think it's just more of a problem about stifling creativity.
Yes, I think that's it. Because, like, once you freeze a show, because what they learned, because I mean, if you go back musical theater history wise, for example, when Oklahoma came out, your favorite musical, Ryan, I know.
I have thoughts about it.
But when that show started touring, it wasn't the original Broadway production that went out on tour. Like, basically, Rodgers and Hammerstein licensed it out, and other people in other states started doing it. And, and then those tours went off on their own around their states. Because this was like in the 40s. So the whole idea of, loading up big trucks and moving the sets across the country was not a thing. It was, okay, so we got a production running in, I don't know, Pennsylvania. And we got another show running out in California. Well, that show in California is made tour regionally across other theaters in California, while the Pennsylvania one may do like 3 or 4 in a circuit and be done. And those shows had nothing that looked alike. Like, the story was the same, but the direction was new. And so I think you're right. Like obviously there's a resident director on these Frozen productions who their sole job is to maintain that original show, because that's the show that came out. It won the awards. It's the show that people saw and liked. And so it's like, okay, we want to keep that alive because that's what people that's what people have shown. That's what they want. People want to go see Wicked because, you get the big defying gravity moment at the end of Act 1 where the cherry picker takes Elphaba up into the rafters, or, Glinda comes down on that, metallic bubble in the opening of the show. I mean, now we're starting to see non-replica productions crop up in South America, in Europe, and they look great. They look really cool, and I'm excited to see them. I mean, I wish I could see them because of that opportunity there. So I think you're right. When you freeze a production, you run the risk of literally freezing the creativity and not letting the actors and have the chance, because it walks that dangerous line of, once again, Prometheus, right? No.
Theseus. The ship.
Theseus. Thank you. Theseus' ship, where it's like, yes, Joe Manganiello directed the original Broadway production of Wicked. Now he doesn't have time to keep coming back like every few months to sit down with the actors again and go, all right, let's reblock this, let's relook at this. It's kind of like you got so many variables you can play in the scene. Like, line inflections can change a bit depending on what the resident director says. But like, even like Wicked has musical riffs. They have 4 musical riffs the Elphabas can do for riff variations for, like, Wizard and I, Defying Gravity, No Good Deed. All have riff variations that are optional that the actress can choose to perform as. Now, I don't know about you, but I would think every actor who comes into the role of Elphaba should have the chance to riff in their own way, as long as it doesn't, overtake the song and it's like riffing on every note, you know. But the fact that there's only 4 riff options and there's been how many alphabets now in 20 years? It's like, I'm sure there are alphabets who wanted to try and put their own spin on things, but couldn't because it was like, you got 4 choices, stick to the 4, or else, you got to write up from the music director saying, well, like, Jill, what were you doing? That's not what we discussed, that type of thing there. So I don't know, Ryan, what do you think?
I guess something that I would add to that is, because you're right, like, this show that's, was conceived and directed so long ago, you're right, the director can't just keep coming back and reworking. But similar to how the cast is not the same cast, we've cycled through how many different iterations of the cast. I guess my question is, and I don't know if there's a good answer to this, but like, why can't we do the same with directors? I get that because, the director is a type of auteur, authorial figure. So as soon as you have a new director, it kind of becomes a new production.
Yep, which is happened with Cameron Mackintosh for the 25th anniversary. Yeah. He said shows don't run 25 years without a revival somewhere. So that was his excuse to, celebrate the 25th anniversary by hiring a new director to direct a whole new production, which ultimately went on tour, was popular, and then ultimately he swapped out the old original West End, or OG West End version for this new version. Now, mind you, there's some other political things that went on there. For example, like he was still paying the RSC money for the original production because it was conceived by them. He obviously did not want to do that anymore. So he said, all right, let's shuffle that original production. But to be fair, that was at 30 years old.
That's like the Taylor's version of Les Mis, I guess, basically, or Cameron's version. Like Taylor Swift has to redo all of her songs to skirt like that kind of copyright issue.
Exactly. Yeah. So we basically put in the new version. But like he said, like after usually a show, if it's 25 years old, it's had at least one revival and there's a new view of it. There's a new thing of it. Like it's not the same turntable every year, So you're right. Like at some point, you're right. Like you can bring in new directors, and I think I'd be very interested to see if Wicked will ever do that, or because Cameron Mackintosh also did that with Phantom of the Opera at 25 years. He brought in a director and they reconceived the show. I didn't like that redirection as much.
Well, there you go. I think you're making an argument for why they're hesitant about doing this, because the diehard fans don't like it, and that and I think this brings me back to something I was going to say in response to that Sarah Ruhl quote that I just did there, is to be a bit of a devil's advocate for a moment. This isn't necessarily my opinion, but I think it's something worth thinking about.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this, but there's a bit of a dismissiveness in that quote towards things. Let me just get the one up again. Becomes ossified. Dangling halfway between live theater, a parade, and an amusement park ride. And I guess I'll just say, for the sake of argument, why are we so precious about theatre, the live theatrical art form? Is it necessarily such a bad thing if we go to a play like Wicked the same way we go to a parade or go to an amusement park? That we just, this is a good time. It's a commercial product. We have certain expectations about it. Like when you go to, I don't know, Disneyland, and you remember doing Space Mountain as a kid and you want to go back and do Space Mountain again, there's nothing wrong with having an expectation of this ride being a certain way. And I think these, again, she says it dismissively in this quote, but I do think that there's, I think that's maybe the point of these long-running things, is that, you saw this show a long time ago, you can come back anytime, and even if the cast has changed, certain like parts have changed, it's still going to be the same show you remember, the same show you enjoyed. You can tell your friend to see it. I think just like a silly example is I've seen Hamilton, the Mirvish production, twice now, once before the pandemic and once post-pandemic. And I guess this is kind of going to be a shitty thing to say, I guess, about a specific artist who I won't name, but I was very unenamored with one actor in particular who I won't single out when I saw it the first time. I'm not going to say, I don't, the point of this isn't to shit on an individual performer. True. I'm just going to say that there was one person in particular who I did not care for when I saw it in like February of 2020.
Right.
So when it came back, and I did want to see it again, Jill had seen it separate from me. We weren't together yet at the time, and she had seen an understudy playing that role in her night, and she said that understudy was amazing, the best understudy she's ever seen. And I was like, wow, I wish I saw that understudy, because when I saw such and such character, I was not impressed. So now when it came back post-COVID, I really wanted to see Hamilton again so I could get a better experience of that. And I bring this up because if I had pretend it's reversed, the situation, that if I had this really great experience the first time, and then a different actor is in the role the second time around, and then I have a much worse experience, I will probably be disappointed that second time around. I'm in the fortunate position where it was reversed, where I got to have the better experience the second time, but it also motivated me to see a show that I might have not otherwise seen twice, just because I wanted to have that better experience. Right. So I think there is value in, when you have a good thing, hang on to it, because, you know, they're rare, first of all, to get. And there is something nice about, you know, if the actor who Jill saw that first time was always playing the role, she would tell all of her friends and be like, come see, make sure you see it, because you got to see this actor.
Right.
You know, like, I feel like this isn't the most like cogent point how I'm sort of presenting this here.
No,
but
but actually you bring up an interesting point of multi-generational appeal. Like, there's one actress who played, I think it was Elphaba, because obviously they're getting all the Elphabas and all the Glindas together and doing these roundtable discussions and interviews. And she says, like, when she played the role at the stage door, when a mother came up to her and said, I saw the original production with my mom in 2003 when the show opened. This was now, 2015, 2019. And she was now here with her young daughter, who was like 5-6 years old, And so she goes, it's so great that these stories and these shows keep having, like, some shows have that ability. I mean, Cameron McIntosh was asked, why does Les Mis have, such a hold on audiences after 40 years? And he said it's because it's the human story, and people want to share that story. Like when we were in the West End seeing it with my family, I had my grandfather, my parents, my sisters, and I. That's 3 generations of people all sharing in that experience, and we all had that experience together. I know I will take my children to go see Les Mis one day.
Unless
that
it's
is a foregone conclusion. Never.
Okay. They said the same about Phantom.
Listen, I think Les Mis will end up being like a mousetrap, because it's one of those shows that just keep coming again and again and again and again. And also, Cameron McIntosh owns the theater, so he has that extra ability where he doesn't have to worry about paying the landlord. He is the landlord. He is the master of the house, so it's really up to him when he wants to, let a show go. Which I think is also an unspoken thing about this longevity as well. Is a lot of these long-running shows have the ability to be in a theater house that has the producer owning the theater being the landlord, so you don't have to worry about that. But that's besides the point. But yeah, no, like, I think multi-generational appeal for some of these shows is the power of this piece and why it runs. Mamma Mia ran for, hold on, I can tell you, I have it in here in my notes. Mamma Mia is the, it is now, as of today, the 9th longest running Broadway show. It is the longest running jukebox musical. It opened in October 2001 and closed in September 2015. So over 10 years it ran. And ABBA has many generations that it appeals to. So it's one of those things where, if the story's good, and if the story is good and it speaks to multiple generations, and it's a story that's worth revisiting over and over again, I think you're right, Ryan. What's wrong with it becoming a bit more like a parade, a bookmark piece where it's like, hey, I saw Wicked when I was this old. Now my child, I'm going to take you to experience this show at this age. It's something like that where it's like a rite of passage, where it's like, hey, we're passing the story along, just like Princess Bride. Like, they talk about it in the movie, where it's like, my grandfather gave me this book and read it to me when I was sick. I read it to your dad when he was sick, and now I'm going to read it to you. God bless Peter Falk. But it's like, stories get passed down, and like, why can't theater have that ability too?
So now this is the part where I my devil's advocate point. Because and I think this will be interesting because there is a Wicked movie coming out fairly soon,
Yes.
I think. I don't know.
Next year, November.
You're following
next
the
year,
news.
part 1 comes out because series is split up into 2 parts. Still don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So there will be 2 Wicked movies.
Yes. But I guarantee that will generate many more people coming to the theater.
I'm sure it will, but I think, the question that you and I have just both asked is why not theater become this thing that sort of like at a parade or an amusement park ride you keep coming back to, is because the thing that makes theater different is that it's live. There is the living component. So you can watch a movie that you have, I love Princess Bride. Since you brought it up, that's a movie that I enjoyed watching as a kid. It's a movie I still enjoy watching as an adult. And if I had kids one day, I would like to show them that movie too.
Yes.
And the movie I show them will be exactly the same because it's a celluloid print. It exists in a permanent, fixed state. The thing that we ostensibly love about theater is that it's alive, that it is a living organism that is being reenacted on stage over and over again. So what is the purpose of fixing it that way? I'd be curious, depending on how successful this movie or pair of movies is. You're right. I think it will motivate people to see the stage show again, but I also think it runs the risk of making the stage show redundant. Because if the thing we love about the stage show is that it's the same every time, and I can bring my kids 20 years from now and see the same show I saw when I was a kid, that once we have a serviceable movie that can serve that function, it doesn't make sense to spend Broadway dollars or West End, ticket prices to see kind of functionally the same thing.
Mamma Mia and Les Mis both had film adaptations, and both times the stage shows saw a uptick
and I
in
will
attendance
say
following those releases.
And like the Les Mis movie was famously terrible. I've never actually seen the Mamma Mia one, so I can't speak to that. But
you never seen Mamma Mia the movie with Meryl Streep?
Nah, I didn't bother. I'm not a big fan of that show. So.
That's a movie night waiting to happen. Jill, get on this.
I don't even know if she's seen it.
I'm sure Jill has seen Mamma Mia. It is a mother-daughter movie.
Sure. Anyway,
I am sure she has seen it.
But so, is it bad? Is it good? Is it does it
Mamma Mia?
Does it make the stage version redundant? Like I'm suggesting that
because there's songs that were cut from the stage show, or songs that were cut in the film that were like when it translated from stage to screen, songs were dropped, some character subplots were dropped, so it's not a direct adaptation. So there's other things there to discover. And once again, I think with Les Mis and Mamma Mia, for example, it's one of those things of you see the song done on screen, but then you get to go see it live. And the one actress who's played Fantine says, because of the movie with Anne Hathaway, because of the Susan Boyle, Britain's Got Talent, star-breaking performance, she goes, now when I do the role, like, the pressure is on because people know the song.
I gotta be better than Susan Boyle.
Yes. It's like I gotta live up to and really make sure people feel it's worth it to be there. And I think anytime you go see a live show, you're gonna feel it because there's nothing beats seeing it live and seeing, somebody belt Defying Gravity right in front of you. That's one of the most magical experiences in the theater I've had is the first time you see Elphaba fly on stage. There is something that is pure magic and joy of seeing her ascend from the ground, as she does the, so if you care to find me, look to the western sky, the lights go and it's like, you just feel it. It's like you're going to see Phantom. You can go watch the Gerard Butler, Emmy Rossum, Simon Calloway film.
Yeah, but it's not good. Nobody wants to watch
it's
that
not great.
movie.
It's not great, but nothing beats the first time you sit in the theater and the chandelier drops on you.
Yeah, but
that magic is still there. There is something magically powerful about that.
So I think what you're hitting on isn't necessarily actually the element of liveness. It's the element of spectacle.
True.
Is what these big mega musicals have to offer. It makes me think of remember that production of Doubt that we reviewed a little
Yes.
while back,
Yes.
the Breaking and Entering Theater.
Yes.
As I indicated in that review, I wasn't too enthused by that production.
Mhm.
And the takeaway that I had from seeing Doubt performed live on stage for the first time since a very good film adaptation of it was made,
Right.
I kind of felt that the fact that it's live isn't doing anything for me. If that's the only selling point, that, you know, I could just watch the movie with a stellar cast. Not that the cast wasn't good in the production we saw, but yeah, it's just, you know, the top tier Hollywood actors doing this very well written play in a very well staged and blocked way, that I didn't feel like the fact that I happened to be seeing it live and it happens to be in a church, it wasn't adding anything. I feel like that's a perfect example that if, you know, if it's not giving something that justifies that like rush of theater, I think we tend to overstate liveness when maybe in the case of these musicals, it's the spectacle that is, what can't be beat.
I think plays are a bit different from musicals in this way, because you're right. Like usually when a play gets adapted for the screen, it's pretty cut and paste. There's not a ton of variation you can do.
Well, and
the joy of seeing a musical live is, you know, Cynthia Riva's going to sing Defying Gravity one way. That's going to be incredible. It's like Anne Hathaway sings I Dreamed a Dream one way. You now go see it live on stage, and, you know, you go see, I don't know, an actress, Idina Menzel. She comes back and does Wicked again. Boom. Why not? You heard it here first, people. But you go see her perform, you know, the show live. And once again, yes, the spectacle of her actually levitating is really cool. But, you know, my dad talks about it when he says, like, you know, it's one thing to see, you know, somebody like a Gerard Butler sing Phantom of the Opera on screen. He wasn't horrible. He wasn't great. But he goes, nothing beats being in the theater and hearing Colm Wilkinson sing the Phantom, making the hair on the back of your neck.
But you're not going to see Colm Wilkinson if you go see it now, or if it
you'll see whoever you see. But if the performer is good, they will give you a good experience.
But if there was a movie version with Colm Wilkinson that you could watch now,
true,
would your dad think that is preferable to seeing Joe Blow do it in the West End?
It would depend. My dad is one of those people. He goes, it depends on the singer, because he goes, if the singer is good, I will enjoy it because they make the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Like, he didn't know who the two Gelfa and Galinda were when we went and saw Wicked the first time. Like, it was Shoshana Bean and Megan Hilty. Now, Megan Hilty's gone on to do Smash, and Shoshana Bean's gone on to do other great Broadway works herself. But he goes, I didn't know who they were. I just knew when they both sang, my hair stood up. It was just that powerful. You know, and that's kind of what that's the same thing when he saw it another time. He went, didn't know who that actress was, didn't care. It was her vocal performance that sold me. Same thing when he took me to see Phantom. He goes, I saw Phantom with Colm Wilkinson. He was great. And then, you know, my dad took me for my birthday one year to see Phantom. And it was the touring production, so it was a bit pared down. The spectacle wasn't as big. But he goes, yeah, the guy who sang the Phantom was really good and sold the show for me. He was worth the ticket price because he gave that performance what was needed, you know. So it depends. Like, once again, spectacle will save you when, you know, your singers aren't that great and you need something else to sell your show.
So let's talk about The Mousetrap, which I've never seen live. I've read it before, but like I've never seen that play performed. But I can't imagine there's a lot of spectacle to justify So how do we account for the success of that show? Is it just a heritage piece at this point, or what?
I think it is a bit of a heritage piece where, you know, it's a fun murder mystery. It's a fun play. Like, I read it years ago. Yeah. You know, so it's like, once again, I've never seen it live. My mom remembers seeing it in the West End and really enjoyed it because it's a well-written Agatha Christie play. So, you know, I think it's one of those things where it's like, I think, yes, you're right. It is a heritage piece where people know it so well now. It's like, oh yeah, The Mousetrap. Like, I mean, like, I've been to London twice now. Both times I never saw Mousetrap. If I were to go to London a third time, like say next week, I would consider going to see Mousetraps because I've never seen it.
But
I've read it, never seen it.
And I think the funny thing is, this is maybe the flip side of a lot of what we're talking about. The fact that you know it will reliably be there every time you go back to London puts less pressure on seeing it this time around, because you're like, well, if I don't see it, like I should see Back to the Future while it's here, because that will maybe disappear after a while. But, you know, don't see Mousetrap, it's fine. I'll go come back to London 6 years from now, it'll still be playing. And as a result, you will never see Mousetrap, because every time you go, you will constantly think, maybe next time there's more prescient things I need to see right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at, in the St. Martin's Theatre, where it does play in the West End, it's a 550-seat theater. So, you know, it's been there a long time, and I guess it's the right amount of seats that it can sustain like that, because I don't know if they're selling out every night.
Like, I feel like it has to be selling decently, because like I remember something when you probably remember this from our a class we took at York with Peter McKinnon as the professor. I forget which one, if it was stagecraft or theater management, but
theater management, I think.
But it was he said that, you know, the thing about commercial theater is that as long as it's making money, the show can go on forever. And so, and the second it stops making money, they pull the plug, because the point of commercial theater, it's not about art. Art is a byproduct, but the point is to, you know, if you make a good artful show, it will sell tickets. But the point is, as long as the show does sell tickets, it doesn't matter what the quality of the show is. And the second it's not making money, get it out of there, get something else that will make money. And I think it is a testament to the popularity of these long-running shows that they wouldn't last this long if they weren't continuing to be profitable. There is a demand for them, and a lot of that does come from heritage and memories and appreciating, you know, the history of these shows. But a lot of it is that, yes, I would like to see this thing. Tourists want to see it. And I don't know, like, do we be dismissive of the tourist market when it comes to these types of shows? Or is, you know, I don't know, what's your thoughts on tourism as like the main audience demographic when it comes to these pieces?
I would absolutely say, like, you know, and this gets into another big topic with longevities of these shows, is, you know, like Lion King, for example. That show is, let me look here on the tracker here, that Lion King ranks as the third longest running Broadway show. Opened in 1997, still running today. It has over 10,000 performances under its belt. Now, that show, at the time, like, yes, those puppets by Julie Taymor were revolutionary. There are still spectacles to look at.
Did she make the puppets herself? I know she directed.
She did design them. She designed them and helped create them, because she does have that.
That's cool. I just want to make sure we are giving the credit where it's due, because puppet designers often don't get credit for the work due.
No, Julie Taymor was very actively involved in the puppet making and the decisions of the puppetry.
Just check.
So, but like Lion King now, you know, it is a tourist trap. It's not so much a ingenious piece anymore where people are like, oh my god, because we've seen other puppets come after this. We've had Avenue Q. There's other shows.
You can't really compare Avenue Q puppets to Lion King puppets in terms of pure spectacle, I would say.
No, but it's like the thing of, you know, like other puppet shows puppet-centric shows have come along.
I know, but Avenue Q is like a Jim Henson parody. It's not, I don't think it's a fair comparison. I'll say Warhorse as like a fair comparison.
There we go, Warhorse came. Warhorse has come along. But, you know, Lion King sells because people love the 1994 film and want to come see, I want to be prepared, and, you know, Circle of Life performed for them. And so it's that thing there where it's like, you know, but at the same time, Lion King has given many actors and stage crews and orchestra members their start in the theater. Same thing with Wicked. Like Megan Hilty, who was, I think, third, she was like standby. She got off the bus and got the understudy role of Glinda when she came to town right after getting out of school. And then, you know, she got to go on and do San Francisco and LA and tour and everything else. And it gave her a start. I mean, I was listening to a podcast where, you know, this violinist came to Phantom of the Opera on Broadway 5 years after it opened and stayed with it till it closed 30 years later. So, you know, she talks about how, you know, Phantom gave her, it allowed her to put her kids through school, allowed her to buy a nice, decent home for herself and her partner. Like, she talked about how, you know, jobs like this in the arts aren't abundant. Like, that's why, you know, a contract at, say, Stratford or Shaw in Canadian theater are, you know, coveted by a lot of performers and artists, because it's like, I get a contract that says I have a permanent paycheck from February to November every year, you know. And I mean,
If you
like,
get
yes,
brought back every year, which not
if you're
everybody
brought back
does.
every year, but you know, like I was talking with Bridget, our friend Bridget, she talks about how, you know, the wig maker there has been there, you know, for over a decade. And that's what they do year round, is make wigs. And it's a good steady gig. And you know, so I think, yeah, like there are tourist trap, yes. And Mousetrap, is it a tourist trap?
Mousetrap is a tourist trap.
100%.
Yeah, the tourists are the mice.
That's right, exactly. But at the same time, how many actors have had the chance to break their legs on the stage? Not literally, but you know, cut their teeth. Thank you, cut their teeth on the stage, or you know, stagehands. Like, how many of them have started there and then gone on to do other projects after that? Like, some of these long running shows do have the benefit of opening the door and then allowing people to come in and hone their craft and then move on to something new. Like Anna Lee Ashford, who is now playing Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd. She started as, like, you know, the Galinda understudy, left when it went into Legally Blonde, came back, played Galinda proper, left again, went and did, you know, Kinky Boots, won the Tony Award, and has continued to work ever since. Like, Wicked gave her start. You know, like that, like, yes, these shows are tourist traps and they keep, you know, they're now surviving off of the tourist pull, because if you're a tourist and you come to New York or West End, what are you more likely to go see? Are you more likely to go see the new unknown play of Kimberly Akimbo? Or are you,
which
like,
was apparently very good and has
it's
been
very
successful?
good.
And yeah,
it won the music. It won the best award at the Tonys for best new
like
musical.
I just feel like we're maybe aging this video a bit, because that might become the next Wicked or Lion King, and then
It
people
could.
look
It
back
very
on this
well
and be
could.
like,
It very
yeah,
well
of
could. We
course
don't know. I
Kimberly
mean,
Akimbo.
it's so
Yeah.
early on in its run, but it's the whole thing of, you know, if tourists from, I don't know, Japan have a choice, they've come with a tour group to New York, and they're saying, what show do you want to go see? Do you want to go see Kimberly Akimbo, a new musical, or would you rather go see Wicked? More likely than not, they're going to choose Wicked, because it's worth the money and it's a proven commodity. So, you know, these things do have a place. They provide longevity of work.
Yeah.
They give break-ins for for performers and stage crew. And, you know, at the same time, when a tourist comes to town, maybe the one downside is the tourists, because they have the fail-safe option, don't give these other shows that could become longer running shows the chance. Because if you only got a choice to spend your money on one ticket, then you choose Wicked over Kimberly Akimbo, and Kimberly Akimbo is bleeding seats. And, you know, there are only a few bad performances away from the producer yanking the cord and pulling it out. You know, that can make or break, but it's that choice you have to make. I don't know, Ryan, what do you think?
Well, I think, because I agree, this job security element does add a wrinkle to it, because we've been talking a lot about just the artistic merit of the piece, but this is an industry and people's livelihoods are on the line. And I do think it is important that these shows do exist that, you know, allow people to stay employed and cut their teeth and get into the industry. Although usually you have to already be very successful in the industry to get into one of these big shows. So it's definitely not an entry level job for most people. That's a bit of a wrinkle to this, but it is good that once you do ascend to that level, you do have steady work and you can, you know, be secure in it. I think I would maybe propose that, because we have been talking about the creativity element of it and stifling creativity through these shows that are fixed in place and don't get to move. I think of, you know, the character James Tyrone in the Eugene O'Neill play Long Day's Journey into Night, who was a veteran actor who is based on Eugene O'Neill's real father, James O'Neill, who, you know, laments the fact that he did this one romantic drama for such a big part of his career. It made him, you know, successful financially, and it sold out all over and toured all over, but he was at a moment in his career where he could have been something great, but then he let himself get locked into this one role that stifled his development. And I worry that it's, you know, everyone's mileage will vary if the, you know, the job security is more important than the, you know, creative flourishment. But these people are artists, just because they're, you know, maybe workman artists, a lot of them who, yes, I play the violin in Phantom and I clock into my job every day. You're still an artist.
You are absolutely an artist.
And
the show can happen without you.
Well, of course. And I think The alternative that I would maybe propose is, instead of just a long running show that never changes for decades, maybe we need more established repertory companies with large ensembles and that can employ a lot of people. So they can, similar to what you're saying with Stratford and Shaw, but they keep bringing this, I just banged my hand, they keep bringing the same people back over and over again, but the work is constantly changing. You know, you have the job security without needing to just do the same show over and over again. And but the problem then becomes, unless you cultivate the fan base of the people who will go to this theater because it's that theater, as Stratford has that type of fan base, Shaw has that type of fan base. But, if the company that does Phantom says that you love our company, that's why you'll come back for whatever new show we do next, I think a lot of people would say, no, we love Phantom. So it's hard to cultivate that. But I don't know, there's something to be said about just star power of artists, like from the mind that brought you Phantom of the Opera and the star. And, Andrew Lloyd Webber is one of the people who has that kind of star power, although obviously Bad Cinderella put a bit of a stain on his
He's had a few clunkers lately that have kind of dampened. But it's Sondheim. Sondheim, like throughout the 70s and 80s, when he was the big writer, it was, hey, there's a new Sondheim show coming. You got to get out and see the new Sondheim show. That's how Miss Saigon was sold. It was from the creators of Les Mis comes their next big mega hit, Miss Saigon. Come see the helicopter.
And I don't know. I don't know if we're going to come to any conclusions about this.
No, I think once again, there's pros and cons to this. I think there is a place for these longer running shows. I mean, because they do open up the doors, and I think once again, the creative teams behind them just need to maybe be a bit more flexible and open. I mean, the fact that it took almost 20 years for the first Black Glinda to be on Broadway is a bit of a took also a little long there.
Yeah, I would say so. Yes.
Yeah, so it took a little long time there, but once again, the creative team was like, we don't want their thought process. They said was, Glinda can be seen as like the mean, bitchy, mean girl. We don't want to put a Black actor in that position if I'm to play that role. But the actor's like, no, I'll play that role. It's fun. Yeah. Like, she also goes on a great character journey throughout the piece. I mean, Les Mis is very well known for BIPOC casting in their shows. Most Eponines now are BIPOC. Like very rarely do you see a white Eponine anymore in the West End. It is usually a BIPOC Eponine, which is great. Yeah. Same thing with Fontaine. Like, they are really good at diversifying their cast. And I think that's the other thing there too, is just the creative team has to be active in the show as well. Like, Joe Manganiello should come see Wicked once a year just to see the cast and go, hey, maybe, what that Jill person did, maybe we should, keep that, because that's a unique interpretation that we can use and build on. Or, have like maybe one rehearsal a year with like the director and go, all right, everybody, let's just sit down and have like a team group chat and just kind of, if you got questions about why am I looking, at, like Fontaine, like in like I Dreamed a Dream, why is it every time I get to this line, I'm told I have to look stage left and put my head in my hand? What was the reasoning behind that move? Why? Like, talk it through, let them discover, like have a day of just workshopping the piece again. Do that at least once a year just to really give the chance for the cast to have some time to really creatively fill the show again, versus just letting them be stagnant, because, there is a purpose to these. They make money for the producers. They provide longevity. They provide secure business for the performers and the artists behind the stage. But they also, sometimes can grow stale and be a bit flat if the actors are just being told, move here, move there, do this, do that, without giving any type of real creative direction. So, I don't know, Ryan, what are your final thoughts?
Like I said, I went into this not thinking I had much to say, and I don't know how long have we been talking about it now. So clearly,
we've been talking for a good bit.
Yeah, so clearly there's more to this topic. I don't think we've exhausted it. I don't think we will exhaust it. Neither of us are in any kind of positions of power to be like, yes, this is what we would change if we, were given the reins to Les Mis. I think you've made some good suggestions. I encourage people get in the comments section if you have thoughts or if you have experience with these kinds of shows, either as a spectator or a worker or a producer of some kind, and you have maybe there's something we haven't considered that I would encourage people to put forward, because, we have a limited perspective on this, but even with that, we found a lot to say about it. So thank you for bringing this topic up. And I'll be curious to see what the future of these long running shows continues to look like.
Absolutely. We'll have to come back and revisit it and see if Kimberly Akimbo has joined the ranks of long running shows. You never know. Yeah. Some shows just have that unique gift where they just click with the audience at the right time, and the rest is history. So we will see. But there we go, Ryan. My cup hath runneth dry, as they say. But we will let everybody go for now. Let's know your thoughts. What do you think the pros and cons are of these long-running shows? Are they worth it, or should we be making room for new voices and new shows more? Should there be a actual time limit of, hey, you've run 15 years, you've run 10 years, time to move on. Let's get something new in that space. So you let us know your thoughts. We want to hear from you. Comment below. But there we go, Ryan. Where can people find and follow you?
No need to follow me personally, but if you like me, just follow Cup of Hemlock Theatre. It's at COH Theatre on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're Cup of Hemlock Theatre on YouTube, where you might be watching this, and Cup of Hemlock Theatre podcast and all the podcast places. Like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. How about you? Where can people find and follow you?
Well, follow me at Mackenzie on all social media platforms. You can follow my musical antics over at Before the Downbeat. We've talked about several of these musicals. Wicked was our season 3 opener, so you can check that one out. Phantom of the Opera was our 50th episode. Lion King will be coming up in a future season. It will be a landmark episode when we do get to that one. What are the ones that we talked about? We haven't done Les Mis yet, because that's going to be 100. And
100th anniversary. You've been doing the show for 100 years.
Exactly. I look good for that. I keep my skin looking good.
You have aged a bit.
So we have that one. I'm trying to think. I don't know. Just, go through the list.
Have people check out the catalog. You don't have to do all the work for them.
Exactly.
Send them to look.
Exactly. I mean, maybe Ryan will at some point we'll have to do a pro shot of Mousetrap, because I'm sure they've done
one available. I'm down for that.
Yeah. There we go. There we go, everybody. All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you in a theater very soon. Ciao for now, and we'll see you in the next episode.